Hi, I'm Lisa with Ivy Lane Interiors, and today's project is this little basset. This is a wedding gift for a newlywed couple. I'm gifting them a custom dresser. The bride wanted a mid-century modern all-wood dresser, so I had found one last year, and that was the one that I ruined. It was the Crowlier, and the veneer swelled on it, so I had to continue to look for another dresser, and I found this basset, and it had really cool lines, and according to the pictures, it looked like it was in pretty good shape. So I'm using my carbide scraper, and I'm going to scrape off all of the finish, sand it down, and see what I'm going to do with it. After I've scraped off most of the finish, I'm going to go ahead and sand through the grits. I usually start about 80, then I'll go up to 120, and then I'll finish off at 180, and then pause and decide what I'm going to do for the finish. Sometimes the edges can be really fragile, so I like to hand sand on the edges so that I just don't blow through any of the veneer. I was reading a book on finishing wood by Fine Woodworking that you can actually sand about 7 to 10% against the grain. It doesn't have to be completely with the grain, and sometimes it can create some cross hatches that allows the finish to come off faster. But it's not completely perpendicular to the wood grain, so it's just enough off to give you a little bit more friction, but it's a good option too to help kind of get that hand sanding going. I'm going to do the same thing on all of the drawers. Honestly, there's just a lot of scraping in this particular video. So I'm using a combination of my carbide scraper, my sander, and then you'll see I do a lot with like these little sanding contours just to get into all of the little fine grooves. I got a pack of these sanding contours. I'll have them linked in the description, and they're really great for when you have just interesting profiles and you just find one that matches up to the profile that you are sanding, wrap your sandpaper around it, and go to town, and they work great. I have one area in the top that has some gouges on it. So I've tried to sand them, but they're a little deeper. And so I'm going to mix in some of the sawdust with some wood glue and see if I can just fill that in. Once I've sanded it back, I still have just a little bit of area. I'm going to come in with just a little bit more of a natural color wood filler to try to continue to build up that surface. After I had it completely stripped down and sanded, she really liked the raw wood look, so she asked if we could try that. I did a green wash and a tan wash, and unfortunately, it really was pulling some like purple and gray undertones. So she said, well, can we try darker? So I tried some gel stain, I tried natural Danish oil and dark walnut, and she said, well, actually, that's too dark. So I said, okay, well, let me go back to the drawing board on the tan wash. So I reached out to one of my friends on Instagram, Linda from 412 Flips. She's really good at tan washes, and I said, what do you think? And she felt it was pulling purple. So she said, well, take a look at the color wheel and see what's opposite of purple. So I did, and it's yellow. And so yellow can cancel out those purple undertones. So I just mixed up a real quick batch of tan wash. This is just too diluted. You'll see it goes on, and I wipe it right back off. So I went back to a ratio of 1 part paint to 4 parts water. And so I'm using, this is Fusion Mineral Paints Algonquin is the tan color that I'm using. And I'm just adding in a little bit of yellow acrylic paint. I really liked the yellow because it really helped cancel out those strange gray and purple undertones. And so I sent her this sample and she liked it. To apply my tan wash, I'm using a zebra fan brush. I like it because it holds a lot of paint. So what you have to do with your tan wash is you see I'm stirring it because that paint is heavier than the water, so it will settle to the bottom. So I make sure I stir it a lot. So I stir it, dip my brush in, apply the paint wash, maybe a couple rows, and then I'm going to come back with something to just wipe that back off. I'm using a microfiber cloth here. I've also used like a lint-free paper towel. So you want to make sure that it is flat. So you don't want to have something that's crunched up because that will affect the texture on the paint wash. You can see I'm doing nice long strokes. I'm trying to make sure that my rag doesn't have a lot of creases in it. I make sure that I'm overlapping the wet areas so that it all blends in. So I'm going to mix up some more paint and show you what I'm doing. This is Fusion Mineral Paint. This is their Algonquin. I'm going to use 1 part of the paint to 4 parts water, and then I'm going to add just a little bit of the yellow to it. On this one, I just felt like the body needed a second coat. Felt like it wasn't thick enough. So you can, as soon as it dries, you can just go right back over it with a second coat. Or later on, you can also. So sometimes you just have to kind of walk away and let it dry and see how it looks after all that water evaporates. Because sometimes I had one that looked like it needed a second coat, but once I let it dry, it dried perfectly. So sometimes you just got to give it a minute, let it dry, and then you can make some adjustments afterwards if you need to. Once everything is dry, I'm going to go ahead and seal it all up. I really like this matte polyurethane by Behr. I'm just going to make sure it's all dust free. I'm going to load up my Erlex 5700 and I'm going to spray 2 coats. As a final step, I'm going to go ahead and line all of the drawers. This is a really pretty pattern. I think it goes really well with the raw wood look. It's kind of, they call it a forest pattern. I'll have it linked in the description. But for lining the drawers, I just simply pull it over and I gave a little bit of overhang on the side of the drawers. And then I roll it up and I put it against the front of the drawers, and then I cut off the excess. I'm going to unroll it, and then I'm going to just pull back about the top third, and I'm going to get that adhered first. I'm going to put that against the front of the drawer. I'm just going to use my hands and start smoothing it out. And again, I'm just using my hands at this point. I'm just going gently, pushing everything into the corners. Then I'm going to come through with a Bondo spreader. It's a nice, flexible, soft plastic. I'm going to use that just to gently get everything smoothed down, make sure there's no bubbles. Then once everything is smooth, I'll come back with a wallpaper spreader. It's a little bit harder plastic, and just make sure everything is in those grooves. Then I'm ready to go ahead and trim it with my X-Acto knife. Let's look back at the before. This is a really cute dresser. Thankfully, it was in really good condition. Just had a few little areas that I needed to address. But after, stripping the entire thing down to raw, doing a lot of sanding and a lot of experimentation on the tan wash, here's the final product. What do you think? I really like this look. She loved it, and it's a real popular look right now, and seems like the young people really like this raw wood look. Obviously, raw wood, I mean, you have to kind of trick the wood. I mean, walnut's just going to be dark anytime you put some type of a liquid on it, so you've got to kind of trick it into making it this color. That's where that tan wash and the yellow come in. So and then of course you have to seal it, because you got to be able to protect it if any liquid or anything's put on it, so it does have to be sealed. So I think it's a really beautiful color. I'm definitely going to try it again. Enjoy some of these pictures, and I'm going to come back at the end and show you a picture of me and the bride. So what do you think? Do you like the tan wash? Would you do the raw wood look? I think it's a real high-end look, and it seems to be really popular right now. Tan washes can be tricky because depending on what wood species you're working on, you're going to have to really try to cancel some of those weird undertones with different colors. So I've heard people having to use a lot of green under washes that will cut the red. Obviously, I had to use yellow. Sometimes you could use orange, but I think it's a really fun technique. And here's a picture of me and the bride, and then her and her dad and her husband picking it up and taking it away. But I love it. Tell me what you think. Do you want to try this technique? Tell me in the comments. I'm going to let you enjoy some of these pictures, and I'm going to come back at the end after the videos, and I'll show you a picture of me and the bride.